Breaking news tonight, the NFL confirms Jon Gruden has resigned as head coach of the Las Vegas Raiders. Gruden first came under fire Friday after the Wall Street Journal reported he used racist tropes to describe the head of the players' union's lips, Damaris Smith, 10 years ago. Gruden apologized, told the Wall Street Journal, quote, "I use a horrible way of explaining it." He went on to say, "I don't have a racial bone in my body, and I've proven that for 58 years. But that wasn't the end of Gruden's troubles. Days later, the New York Times exposed he had also casually and frequently used homophobic and misogynistic terms. Joining me now is sports journalist and writer for The Undefeated, Bill Rhoden. Bill, how are you responding to this news?
Charles, I was surprised that they got rid of him because Mark Davis had given this guy a 10-year contract. But I'm not surprised that Gruden is who he is. Jon Gruden is the kind of guy. If you call me up and say, "Rhoden, man, I saw Jon Gruden defecating in the middle of the street," I believe you.
Wow.
I don't feel that way about most people, but some people are just like that. So the misogyny, the homophobia, the racist stuff, all that stuff I have, he's just, he just seems to be that kind of person. But he's also the epitome of the entitled white guy,
Right.
Davis
But see,
gave him
is that the thing though? There's a crew of them. He's not saying this himself. He's not saying this at home. He didn't get overheard on the street corner. He's sending these emails to a crew of people. None of them are reporting it. None of them are saying anything about it.
Right. See, you're absolutely right, Charles. So, he's going to take the fall, but there's a whole bunch of these cockroaches who are part of his crew who laughed at his jokes, who basically emboldened him, who are going to kind of recede back to their little dark corners and just be smarter about it. So you get rid of him, but by no means do you get rid of this kind of cancer. And we've seen this happen. Right. Yeah. I mean, we've seen this happen a few times in my industry. We've had, it's kind of raised the question: what do our white allies, so-called allies and friends, say when they think they're not being recorded, when they think that they're just talking to their white friends? Gruden was just I don't know if I call him a dummy, but I guess he was just felt so bold and emboldened that he just figured that nothing would ever happen to him. So I'm stunned that it happened this quick, but I'm not stunned by what he said.
What do you think about this? Coming at a time when the NFL itself has committed itself to, to racial kind of inclusion and playing, in some cases, the Black national anthem, made a big deal of being supportive of these athletes who come out and say that they are gay men. This is the underbelly of that. This is happening pretty much at the same time. Coaches being derisive of that fact. Gruden has a player on his team right now who is openly gay.
Right. And and if I'm that player, I'm thinking, what was this guy saying about me? And for all this stuff that's going on in the NFL, that Gruden's not the only one. I think a lot of people under their breath are just kind of grinning, they're just bearing it. Because the league, 70% of the league are Black players, and so I think there are a lot of coaches, a lot of executives who felt just like Gruden. They're just not stupid enough to put it in emails. But I think that
do we expect to hear from those other coaches condemning Gruden's actions? Do you expect to hear from them condemning what he's done?
You would think that there would already been an outcry, right? You think there would have been an outcry. Instead, there were some coaches who were actually sort of defending him, saying that they never heard him say this, that kind of stuff. So I'm sure probably after this, coaches will come out and say, yeah, I don't subscribe to that. But to your point, Charles, there's a whole crew of his cronies who he talked to. He's, and what about the guys he sent this email to? What about them? What was their response? And, and trust me, had the New York Times not gotten their hands on the emails and publicized this, I think the Raiders may have been trying to slow walk it. And if it would have just stopped
Right.
at his denunciation of DeMaurice Smith, they may have just tried to let it die down. But they couldn't because it was just too much stuff. I mean, he's calling using a slur to describe the commissioner of the NFL. You can't survive that. He's talking about women referees. He's talking
Right.
about a guy
But is his attack on Goodell the fatal blow? Could he survive? Can you survive being an open racist? Can you survive being a homophobe? Can you besides being a misogynist? But the line you cannot cross is actually to kind of insult the boss.
Insult the commissioner, right? That's tough to survive. But I also think, for all the reasons you mentioned, that it's hard in a league that's trying to promote diversity. It's hard to survive this, and particularly this deluge. I think, again, had it just stopped with him using a slur to describe DeMaurice Smith, maybe he could have walked away from that. But all this other stuff, there's no way, particularly in an NFL that's, again, primarily made up of young black men, and at a time when the league is talking about its record of diversity, even though people pointed out, well, this happened, 11 years ago while he was an analyst. And the point is that, we're involved in a war on racism, and basically
Right.
Gruden was a war criminal, and so that there is no statute of limitation for that. So,
Right.
like I said, it's
How do you
good he's
expect?
gone.
How do you expect ESPN to respond? They had to have known something about this. Many of these emails were sent when he was working for them.
Yeah, well, that's interesting too. The question you have to ask, go back then, how many of people who worked with Jon Gruden knew he was like this? He didn't just get like that. And again, it keeps going back to the thing that we were talking about earlier. You run with your crew. You don't tell racist and homophobic jokes to people who don't play that stuff. You people who are your cronies, they know about you. They know you're like this. And if you think that this was the first time Jon Gruden, I don't think this stuff was just confined to emails. So your question is correct. How many people who are now, being shocked and disgusted knew this is who this guy was? He just didn't get like this. He's been like this.
So how does the NFL, deal with this going forward, dig itself out of this? Because it really does shock the system, right? Because we have seen the NFL, on the face of it, the PR arm of it, trying to be different. But this reminds you that the NFL is made up of human beings. Many of them may be thinking and acting and holding the same beliefs as Gruden.
Yeah, and I think the NFL for a long time has been very regressive. All the stuff that was on display, the racism, the homophobia, the misogyny, all that stuff was sort of on display in the NFL. So when you say how do they go forward, they wouldn't have moved forward on this had these things not been public. To the NFL's credit, they're going through hundreds of emails, and who knows if this is the end. Who knows what else they're going to find. So you can't legislate people's hearts. All you can do is let them cut their own throats, and that's sort of what Gruden did. But we all know, Charles. I know he's not the only one. He's not there. There are probably hundreds of people who feel like that, but they weren't stupid enough to put it in writing.
Exactly. You see one roast, there are 100 behind the walls. Bill Rhodes, thank you so much for joining us tonight and help me understand this. I really appreciate it.